let's say you're getting out of school, you're, $5 million in debt because you bought a practice as well. What's sort of the game plan? Like, do you just live off ramen noodles until you pay off your debt and make a little bit of money and you have, 50, 100K to put into something? Or do you do a mix of, investing or both? Or like, how does it work? Because I remember, you mentioned the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he had this game, this board game that I love. Like, this is how my wife and I learned more about investing. It's called Cash Flow, right? So you, for those who've never played, it's a really fun game. It's a really good thing to teach kids about like how investment works. So you pull in professions, right? Like, yeah, so sometimes you might be the plumber, sometimes you might be the receptionist or the engineer or the doctor, right? Initially, when you draw a card and it's like, oh, you're a surgeon and you make like, $300,000 a year, and it sounds really impressive, right? But then you realize, yeah, but you also went to school for a lot longer than everyone, so you don't actually start earning income for much later in your life. There's also a lot of debt. There's also like, it's, if you don't play your cards right, the plumber's making way more money than you in the long term. Like, it's, you have a good advantage if you're smart about it. If you're not, you can very easily end up in, a significantly worse financial position than a teacher. And you see this with dentists, like they get burnt out. A lot of them are, like, I was shocked when I learned that like the divorce rate, suicide rate is insane with dentists because it's so much pressure, right? So help me understand, like, if you're just out of school, you got a bunch of debt, maybe you got your first little practice, right? Do you buy that building, like work off your debt, maybe buy that as your first investment, or do you start putting money into deals? Like, how would you do it if you had to do it again?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the way that I answer that is I always revert back to the word personal finance, because it's personal. Everybody's different. What's right for me may not be right for somebody else, which is one of the reasons why I'm not too big on financial advisors, is because they only push one thing. It's like, you have to do this. There's no other option. You have to do a 401k, and that's it. But what if somebody, like you said, what if somebody's in a ton of debt but they're pushing the 401k? So I think it just depends on your situation. But if I were to go back again, looking at what I've done, I still would have, well, I think dentists make enough money to where we can do both. We can pay off our loans quicker than normal, but we can also invest money, have some money to invest too. So I would, any type of student loan or something like that, I would pay it off. If it's a 30-year, pay it off quicker, maybe like 10 or 15 years, something like that, double the payment or whatever. But then I would do, and I get this from Grant Cardone, I would do everything that I can to save up $100,000 in an account. Because people I see online on these forums, they're like, I got $5,000 or I got 10 grand. What do I put it in? This and that. It's like, who cares? What, if you got 10 grand, what's the difference between making 5% or 10% on 10 grand? $500 or $1,000. What is that going to do? Nothing. So that's why he says, scrimp and save and do everything you can. Continue living like a dental student if you can. If you're married, then your wife may not let you, or your spouse may not let you, but really live like that as much as you can until you get that 100 grand. With that 100 grand, then you can start in the process of investing. Because most of the investments that I do, we're doubling our investment about every 5 to 7 years, sometimes better than that. So think about that. If you're investing 100,000 a year, and then every 5 to 7 years, that's doubling. Well, once you get to year 6 or 7, then that 100, even though you're putting 100 away that year, that original 100 now it's turned into 200. So now you're putting away 100 plus 200, you're putting away 300. And then it really starts to snowball. And that's where I'm at in my career right now. I'm been doing this for about 6.5 years. So all of these original deals are starting to sell, and it's starting to snowball.
Because I guess there's a timeline to them, right? Like when they're buying into a property, like let's say because you have a group of investors, you're buying a self-storage unit. You're not going to hold it on to it for 30 years, right? Is that usually the lifespan of it? It's like some 3 to 5 years, or like how long do you guys stay in these deals before they cash out? Or I guess, does it depend on like maybe the market's good, let's sell the property, or how are they structured?
Yeah, it varies. It's anywhere from so sometimes 3 to 5 years, sometimes 10 years in some of these funds. But let me just give you an example of one that is kind of the typical average one that I've been in. Okay.
Mhm.
Apartment building, 100, let's say you put $100,000 in it, but they're going to project to hold it for 5 years.
Mhm.
Okay. So during that 5 year time period, they're going to pay you a return every year, is typically quarterly. Let's
Mhm.
say it's 6%, which is on the low end, but let's just say it's 6%. So you're getting off that $100,000 investment, $6,000 a year quarterly. So divide that by 4, whatever that is,
Mhm.
1,500, tax free, because of the depreciation they get from the building offsets that. So for 5 years, you get the 6,000 a year. So at year 5, you've gotten $30,000.
Mhm.
Okay. So if they sell, then you've got your 30 grand plus you get your initial investment back 100.
Mhm.
Then and like I said, most of these deals that I invest in, I try to get as close to double my money as possible. So you got 130 back. So they're projecting you getting around 60 to $70,000 profit from the sale. So that's
Mhm.
how that $100,000 turns into 200 over that time period. So then when you average it out, if that's a 5 year hold, then your average return, which is IRR, internal rate of return, it's 20% a year, right? Because you've had it for 5 years, you've doubled it. So that's a very simplistic way to look at it. Some of these deals I've had go full cycle in 2 years when they were supposed to be 5. Some of them longer. So, but I think if you do this long enough, you're slowly and surely. It's not like a get rich quick thing, but you're slowly and
Yeah.
surely you're replacing. You start off and you're already starting with the end in mind. You're
Mhm.
replacing your dental income versus what the financial advisors want us to do. You have to work until you're 60 or 65. There's no other option. You can't even get to your money. Or if
Yeah.
you want access to your money early, they're going to charge you a penalty and taxes. It's like, dude, it's my money. So
Yeah.
that's what I would have done differently.